Yeah, so we're just doing a round of introductions. We could start off with Gabriel. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gabriel, and I am the program fellow for Youth at the Stage. And Youth at the Stage is a collaboration between 10 different youth media organizations, and together we support a cohort of our students to produce, publish, edit, distribute, get workshops around students making maybe their first media projects, others, and just re-incentivizing collaboration and cross-pollination and everything. And in June, we're going to have a showcase just to celebrate all the work that our students have done so far. And I am also part of WHYY Media Labs. Thank you. And I'll give it to Lisa.
Hey, I'm Lisa. I'm the Director of School Partnerships at WHYY, and I'm really excited. I hosted last month's awesome meeting that we had with Baltimore's a crew from Baltimore, and yeah, I invited Keisha, and Janine's leading this, so I'm really excited. And Keisha and I were partners in college for Philadelphia Neighborhoods at Temple, but WHYY Media Labs are in a lot of schools across the city, teaching video and audio storytelling to our teens, and you guys all know that. And yeah, excited to have you all meet Keisha. And I'll popcorn it to Janine, the other Janine.
This Janine? Okay, hey everybody, Janine here, founder and executive director of Little Filmmakers, and we are an arts organization here that works with 11 to 25-year-olds, and we primarily help them to learn all the skills that they need to learn to become storytellers in media and film. We got programs around the city through our partnerships with the Free Library of Philadelphia. We also have a summer program that's coming up. We're going to shoot 2 films, so 20 kids. Oh my God, what was I thinking? And then we're going to have a little bit of a community premiere at Drexel University at the end of the summer. And yeah, we're just trying to, do the dang thing, have fun while we're doing it, and look good while we're doing it. Happy to see you guys.
Popcorn?
Wait a minute. Yeah, my bad. Brianna.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brianna. I met some of you last time on my first time with the PHMC, one of those, PYMC meeting. I'm a site supervisor at WHYY, so I work with Gabriel and Lisa and our friend Becca, who's here as well. Yeah, still just learning what we're doing here, so thanks for having me. Oh, and popcorn, Alex?
Hey everybody, I'm Alex. I'm the director of Big Picture Alliance. We're a youth filmmaking organization in Philly. We teach filmmaking from script to screen to 12 to 24-year-olds. We have after school workforce and summer programs. We just launched our workforce program this year. It's called Media Futures. It's a 10-month paid apprenticeship, and youth get Adobe certified. They create a work for hire with a client, and then we place them at an industry partner or industry apprenticeship in the field. So that's where we're at right now. We're placing our first cohort of 5 18 to 24-year-olds with some of the top production companies in Philly. So we're super excited about that. We also have an annual film festival every year where all of our youth come together and show their work. So save the date. It's June 30th, 6 to 10 p.m. We're going to have free filmmaking workshops and premiere some new films. We wanted to have open submission this year. It's not going to happen. It's just too much for us. So, but we did want to have free filmmaking workshops. Hopefully next year we're going to expand it and open it to all youth from Philadelphia. So I will be sending everybody invites and posters and information about that. I also wanted to mention, so BPA is the fiscal sponsor for PYMC. I did want to mention to everybody that we just found out we're getting funding renewed again for this coming year. So we're fully funded. We also will have money left over this year because we started late. So I want to focus most of our time with Keisha today because she's joining us and we're super excited to learn more about RealWorks, but I did want to mention that. So sometime soon in the next, few weeks or so, we should talk about, thinking about maybe a retreat this summer and planning for next year and all that good stuff. I think we could potentially hire a part-time coordinator. We could have the sort of workforce event we've talked about having for a while. So lots of good things. I'll pass it over to who didn't go yet. Becca, did Becca go? Okay.
Hi there, I'm Becca. I am a site supervisor in the Media Labs program at WHYY. I'm also our data specialist and have been handling the budget for the education department here for the past year or so, which means that I've had some access to the back end behind the scenes management of the You Set the Stage program. And I'm excited to be here. Who else hasn't had a chance to introduce themselves? Sherry?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Hi, everyone. Sherry Hope Culver. I'm an associate professor at Temple University in the Department of Media Studies and Production. I also direct the Center for Media and Information Literacy at Temple, and my focus is really around kids media. That's why I'm here. And we're going to start a new certificate in children's media that's going to start, I'm not exactly sure. It could be the fall, but it's probably more likely going to be the spring. And it did occur to me before, although it's nothing to do with my job, is that there seems to be there's an opportunity for a YMCA sort of video for PYMC. Do you think there's one like we should be doing? So I'm just throwing that out there. And wait, Ramses, you didn't go yet, right?
Hey, my name is Ramses Montez. I'm a filmmaker and journalist. And I'd say my focus, or why I'm here more than anything, is just to figure out how all this stuff works and to learn from y'all in general. Yeah, I was at a Hulu production a couple months ago, and they were telling me about how Philly is quickly becoming a more burgeoning place for filming, just because it's more accessible than New York in a lot of ways. And so I'm really interested in just figuring out how my place in that, my community's place in that, and what I can bring back. And let's see. I guess
I think that's everyone, right?
yeah, except Keisha.
Back to me, and then I'll introduce Keisha. So I'm Janae Chizik-Agüero, founder of Motivos, bilingual magazine. Started it in 2006 to really address disparities in access opportunity for young people, especially Latino youth, especially first-gen youth, to have a platform to amplify their voice and to access resources and role models to get a hold of opportunities. Besides the bilingual quarterly magazine that is now the nation's largest of its kind, we have a media mentorship program where we meet weekly via Zoom, and once a month we do field excursions. Tonight we're going off to Ride Free for their free space of events and green screen and recording studio, etc. Just really to access more opportunities for youth to amplify their voice, create the stories, shape the narrative of their communities. And I'm so excited today. Ramses is a media fellow with Motivos from 2016, 2017, right, Ramses? So a while back now, excited to have him with us. And Keisha was an intern, a long time ago, 2008, I want to say, ish. But she was a freshman at Temple at the time, made our first ever commercial. Not going to embarrass her by showing it, but excited to be back in touch. And last year we even had an intern from RealWorks working with Motivos virtually from New York. So there's lots of cool opportunities for interaction. And the goal for today really is to explore ways that maybe we can learn from what New York is doing, kind of share ideas, hopefully spur conversations that go out from here. Keisha will share her journey a little bit from Queens to Philly, from Temple to NBC Peacock to Viacom, CBS's Content for Change Academy partnerships, and kind of going full circle now, working back at RealWorks, where she started as a teen. Now she's the director of workforce and external partnerships for Brooklyn-based RealWorks. So I'm excited to introduce Keisha. I was blessed having her as an intern way back when. And I would say, what else can I say about Keisha? She is just a go-getter. She's so full of energy. She really cares deeply about people and stories and carefully telling them. And I think I'll show maybe a quick clip from Good Morning America's coverage of RealWorks. Would that be all right, Keisha? And then pass the mic. Maybe, yeah. Okay, let me make sure I've got that up on my screen. Here we go.
Verizon Small Business Days are back.
Following
Come
this
in and meet with a
commercial, of
Verizon
course.
business expert April 28th to May 4th to get some of our best offers on 5G plans, devices, and internet, like ultra-fast, ultra-simple wireless 5G business internet. You could get 1 month on us and up to $1,500 to help cover the cost to switch. Come in or book an appointment online today during Verizon Small Business Days. Verizon Small Business Days are going ultra, so your business can get more.
Here we go.
Now with Real Works, a celebrated cinema program helping to create a more inclusive media industry while thriving through this pandemic.
My story can make an impact on people who are going through the same thing so they know they are not alone. I am a change maker because I want my stories to make a difference in the world.
RealWorks is a nonprofit in Brooklyn that provides free filmmaking, mentoring, and workforce training for young New Yorkers to gain careers in the film and television industry. In 2001, Steffi and I were both working in television and living in Brooklyn. We were invited by our local YMCA to teach a filmmaking class to teenagers. We fell in love with teaching and we were really inspired by the young people's stories. We invited the YMCA to invest in the program and create a new program in which students told their own stories. And we've been teaching filmmaking to teenagers in Brooklyn ever since.
The kids come from varied backgrounds, but we do try to bring in kids who come from schools that are seriously underserved. And a lot of schools in New York they don't offer art programs.
We realized we were onto something when we saw the student films come off the computer and when we put them in festivals and they got a lot of response. And I think the core of it was mentoring and helping young people tell their stories and let them choose what stories they want to tell.
They're doing everything from shooting their own films,
Joining your own tape,
to editing their own films and producing them.
As someone who's gone through this program and is now working here, I can say in the last 20 years, RealWorks has made a huge impact on thousands of young people's lives and has really opened doors for them to enter the media entertainment industry.
The COVID pandemic was devastating to the communities that we're serving. And the first thing that we did was create Zoom classes.
We realized by using this methodology that we could actually expand our programming beyond COVID, in order to make sure that our reach is actually deeper and further, even beyond New York City.
I've seen the value that this program has had on my professional life, and being able to be a part of making a more diverse and inclusive media and entertainment industry every day makes going to work so easy and so rewarding. Thank you. Thank you for such a warm introduction. I'm sitting here like, what an ego boost. Thank you guys so much. Where do I begin? Well, I'll welcome Stormy. I saw you join, so hello. Thanks for putting that in the chat. I'll drop in the links to the two websites that are affiliated with RealWorks. RealWorks main website, and then the Media Makers program has its own website. And you guys can all hear me okay? Everything's okay. I guess a little bit about my background. So I born and raised in New York, from Queens, New York. I went to high school in Brooklyn, and in my senior year, learned about the RealWorks program. There was a student in one of my classes that had done a film, and she shared it with the class because that was in an AP psychology class, and the film was on mental health in her family. And I remember watching the film and thinking, I was probably 16 or 17, probably 17, and I was thinking, this is amazing. You made this film on your own, that's possible, and just kind of being really inspired by the work. And so I applied for the program. I did not get in the first time around, which I tell my boss all the time, you guys, this almost didn't happen. But I applied again in my last semester of my senior year. I got in and I was able to be part of the program, and it was really impactful on my career choices. And so I'm honored to be in a space with all of you because, you know, I just think the work you guys are doing, and I took a lot of notes, is just life changing. You know, I did a documentary and it was all fine. It was about Alzheimer's disease that was impacting my family, my friend's family. And then I was at the time where I had been applying to college, and I had just got accepted to Temple University. So I see you, Sherry. I love Temple. It's my alma mater. And I see you, Lisa. And I didn't know what major to choose. And I ended up choosing broadcast journalism specifically because of the experience that I had in the documentary class. And I knew that I wanted to continue to explore what documentary work would look like. I had done like newspaper articles before as like a high school student, and I was very interested in doc. So studied broadcast journalism, met Janae from Los Evos, interned with her, had a wonderful experience. We went to California together, and just really wonderful time being able to do that. And then, you know, later graduated from college and started working at Chase in like this temporary position around mortgaging, but I was networking because I was like, I don't want to do this. And I eventually, maybe 3-4 months out of college, landed a position as a PA at NBC. And I was at NBC in their documentary unit for about 4 or 5 years. And then I worked on to work for ABC and a bunch of other companies, and later decided that I wanted to be in a position where I could take from what I learned in the industry and be able to give back to this next generation. I also just, the production life was crazy, and I was like, I don't know, I can sustain this forever. So I ended up coming back to RealWorks just as they were launching their workforce program. So, you know, RealWorks as a nonprofit started in 2001 and was, as you saw in the video, in the Y, teaching filmmaking. So we have a bunch of different classes that are long classes, and they pair every student with a mentor one-to-one. It's a really wonderful model, and it's very successful. But what they were finding is that people were coming out of the programs and really wanted to work in the industry. And so they wanted to be able to help guide and support that process. And so I came in just as they were launching this new workforce department within RealWorks. That was in 2000, maybe 18, 17. But fast forward, 2019 was really when Media Makers started. So we launched a partnership with the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment here in New York City, and then also CUNY, which are the City Universities of New York. There's like 20 something campuses. It's one of the largest urban campuses that exist. And we launched a partnership solely around internships, right? Because for us, we're thinking, you know, we're teaching them in the classroom. A great next step would be introducing them to internships and connecting with companies. Fast forward to 2022, we have now 158 students in our internship program. We have a manager of our career exploration program. We have 2 full-time internship coordinators to support those students, and that's CUNY students and also RealWorks alumni. Our internship model is up to 3 paid internships over time, coupled with extensive work readiness training. The work readiness training was really important to us because we were placing students, we learned the hard way, right? We're placing students in offices or on sets, and they're in experiences that they've not experienced. They're in places that they've not been privy to, right? And so we want to make sure that they understand what email etiquette looks like, what set etiquette looks like, how to you know, network effectively. We wanted to make sure they had these soft skills during the time that they're learning about the technical side as well. And so that's a huge part of our programming. And then we also, so that was what we were doing. We were doing that. Internships were great. And we suddenly started to be in a place where companies were saying, well, can you do more than internships? Can we partner with you to create a job training? So I think one of our first job trainings was a production assistant training funded by HBO. HBO was like the first funder of RealWorks. So they've been funding for many years. And that was for production assistants. And that did pretty well. And it was a pilot. You know, we never actually did it again. They ended up doing it with someone else. But we later got approached from HBO, but what are they called now? Warner Brothers Discovery, to do a training program for people interested in post-production management. So a partner, I think she's like the SVP of post-production at HBO on the West Coast. She met with us and she said, listen, we have this issue in hiring where we don't have enough qualified and also diverse people in as post coordinators, as post supervisors in these kind of roles. And so she partnered with us to create a training program, which we launched in the fall of 2020, completely virtual. And it's been running virtual ever since. And it runs and we support participants from New York and LA. So it's a bi-coastal training. And it's been, we have like 50 something graduates from that program. It's been really successful. They've gone on to work for not only HBO shows, but for Netflix and Amazon and Stars and a bunch of different places. And from that launch, we've now gone to do, we just recently launched a production and counseling training funded by Amazon Studios. And we have a relationship with the union here. And this is where things are starting to pivot for us. Like getting a relationship with the unions, we work with the IATSE, has allowed us to reach people who don't come from traditional film backgrounds, but getting them on sets. So we did in 2019, we did a training for electricians. Right now we just launched our training for grips. And to be a grip on a set, really you just need a construction background. So now we're expanding our recruitment to bring people with skill sets that they may not even think are transferable, to bring them on into an intensive training and then have them set out on actual film sets to start gaining their union hours towards a sustainable career. And that's been really exciting. So, we do that training. We've also developed relationships with Viacom CBS, which is now Paramount, for not only like internships, but now we launched a program with them called Content for Change Academy. It was under a bigger initiative that they were doing. And the Content for Change Academy, our big strength is recruitment, right? So we found 7 individuals. This is it. These are our 7. Tania up in the right-hand corner is a RealWorks alumni. And then on the bottom left, that's Marvin, he's a RealWorks alumni. And so is Georgia Ray, who's right next to him. And then the rest we got from the city, just different company partners. This was a great program because these 7 individuals got placed across different brands within the company, kind of that apprenticeship model that Alex was talking about, right? Like they got placed in these different positions. They started working and learning, and then essentially 5 of them were hired into full-time positions after. For the one that wasn't hired, one got hired by AMC, so they picked her up before she could even say. Another one, he left the state and he started working on something else, I think in music. And then the last person, what happened to the last person? I can't remember. I think they got hired by someone else as well, but it was a pilot program, and now we're going to be launching it in the fall in LA. So it's really exciting. And what we're seeing our tagline is like classroom to careers, right? Really starting early in the classroom space to teach them the skills, to introduce them to the industry, to give them a platform to tell their stories. And then for those that really are passionate about doing the work, figuring out about, getting them internships or getting them into job training programs and really starting to build their social capital and network. And, hopefully, I always say that like, the success of our program is when our alumni don't reach back out to us because they're working full-time in the industry and they don't even need to, connect with us anymore. And we can call them back to sit on a panel or mentor. And that's what we're starting to see, so many years later. So it's all happening very quickly. I think this is for the work that you guys are doing, the work that we're doing. This is such a pivotal time. I think, when during the pandemic, especially during the Black Lives Matter movements and everything that was going on in society, suddenly people, when I say people, companies, right, they started to have that aha moment of like, we don't have a DEI committee. We need a DEI committee immediately. And like, they started doing all this stuff. And so I think, what I'm finding is that doors that weren't open to us before are now open to nonprofits. They're now open to these sort of organizations because everyone's looking for talent, and they're looking for talent from the BIPOC community, from underserved communities. They're looking for, being able to partner with people who are innovative and who have the grassroots connections that they don't have as these big, large companies. A lot of the things that companies when I'm talking to employer, like hiring managers and, you know, talent acquisition departments, they always say like, we know that, you know, we do believe that the talent is out there, but we have no idea how to go about finding them, you know? And so that's where like partnerships with like, you know, with you guys, with the work we're doing, I think that's where they're able to find the talent that exists and help people gain access. I think it's all about gaining access.
Can you touch a little bit on, you know, your time in Philly versus your time in New York, working in media in both fields, both arenas, both markets, if you will? Can you pinpoint some differences that you saw, some opportunities for growth, just from your own perspective? Not saying like this is, you know, everything, but like from your own perspective, going through finding internships, looking for opportunities, talking to people, just kind of, what did that look like? Where are some opportunities for growth that you see?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. When I was at Temple, I remember I had networked with someone, a producer at NBC Philadelphia, the local station, and I just emailed her and was like, "Can I come in and shadow?" And she was like, "Sure." That is very rare to happen in New York. Like, let's just be honest, like that, because people get too many emails and bombarded. And I think that there's such a wonderfully, I don't even want to say small, because I think small like projects like that is like not a good thing. I think like there's an intimate and very close network within Philadelphia media that is so wonderful and unique. And I think in my time working in New York, yes, like I'll go on LinkedIn, I'll find someone who worked with someone, and like there's small small networks within like a specific unit. Like when I was working in unscripted television, a lot of the unscripted television people knew each other, and it was a number of companies that just did unscripted television. But I feel like in Philadelphia, like there's more opportunity to like to know people maybe outside of what you're specifically doing, but they're under that media umbrella, and it's easier to connect and build networks. When I was at Temple, I was a part of Temple Association of Black Journalists. And then I was working, you know, I was following the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists and trying to get involved in those sort of networks. And I think what's so nice is when, you know, you go to those summer events, a lot of times the people know each other, like, you know, there's just familiar faces. And that's just harder to find in New York. And so I think that's a strength of the media industry in Philadelphia. You know, I think, I don't know how it works. I know like, I don't know how it works in Philly for like funding, right? Because that's always the challenge, right? Like we all have these wonderful big dreams, but like who's gonna come on and sign up for these things? In New York, you know, working with the city is what got us started. The mayor's office, like they gave us this money. So the way it worked is that our partnership with CUNY and the internships, the mayor's office provided money to subsidize salaries. So we were able to go to companies that did not have internships programs and place a student there and use the money from the city. Like that was like a pivotal moment for us. We also get money from the state. So we get money from New York State, we get money from New York City, and you're tapping into all these areas. I don't know best how it works within Philadelphia. I don't know if there's just money floating around, but I do know that like what I'm finding in New York is that like it's harder for us to get money for the wonderful education programs that we have. Like it's harder for us to get money for our documentary classes and our narrative classes because like that's cool. But I think for at least in New York, the climate is like jobs. Like what is equaling jobs? And so I don't know if it's similar in Philadelphia, but I think like, you know, that's why Alex, I think what you guys are doing like that once you start to see those positive outcomes, like that's where you know where you can tap into hopefully to some of the same kind of grants and things that, you know, we apply to that are, you know, just general funders and foundations. That's where like we're able to go to like big companies and ask them for specific funding when they start to see the outcomes of jobs. And so I'm hopeful that and so anyway, that's kind of where I think the growth can come out of, is like connecting the wonderful things that you guys are doing to getting people working, getting people locked into positions, and having companies, employers, unions know that like there's a talent pool that you're growing. And I also think like connecting, like I love that you guys are all on this meeting. We have an advisory council of companies that we bring together. And I think like I think convening and bringing people on the same page, you know, they say there's strength in numbers, right? I think that's all really helpful, because if you guys can, you know, write grants together or create proposals and projects together, I think that can be really impactful. And you guys I think Philly's a wonderful place where the proximity and the closeness of the network can make that more easily possible than in New York. In New York, we're always competing. We're not coming together. We're always like fighting against each other. But I think you guys can do that pretty well, or have the opportunity to do that.
Can I jump in and ask a question? That's like super helpful, Keisha. Like, I think, you know, I'm interested to know more about how RealWorks sort of leveraged those relationships with like the mayor's office and CUNY, and then big companies like HBO. Because I know for us, part of the reason we're working collectively is to gain that leverage and like advocate, you know. I mean, the unique thing about the Philly Youth Media landscape is not only are we really collaborative, but like all the organizations do really unique things, you know, like us and Little Filmmakers do narrative film, and then WHYY is journalism, and Motiva is print, and Scribe is doc. You know, we all have our own niche, but if we work together, we can leverage and advocate for these kinds of things. So I'm wondering, you know, I mean, that's really our goal of working together. I think where we come to, and everybody, and Poppin does news. So like, I know like our biggest challenge is like, how do we initiate those things? How do we leverage those things? Because I know like BPA's approach, we literally just reached out to the sort of like best small production companies to just like, hey, this is what we do, you know, you want to work together? Like, I probably had some connections, and they said yes. They all said yes. I had a list of like 20 companies. I started with 4, and the first 4 said yes. So there's interest, like you're saying, there's interest there, right? There's like excitement there, but to leverage these bigger sort of partnerships with city and state and unions in particular is what I would love to hear more about, because everybody we talk to, and we had this experience talking with Wide Angle as well, the unions are just like an impenetrable fortress that are sort of like layered in everything from like legacy to like nepotism to like racism to like, we want to keep our jobs instead of let's work on cultivating the next generation, right? And unions open up a whole other set of career pathways that are not just like, you know, we know not everyone's going to be a director, right, or a cinematographer. We're all training students on camera and editing and directing and writing, but there's so many other jobs. So like relationships with unions open up this whole other world for creatives and just professionals. So all that being said, as context, like I would love to, I don't know if you can like give us any more background into how RealWorks went about leveraging those types of relationships, like with the city, maybe with CUNY, but specifically with unions, because I know that's like your biggest barrier.
So with the city, I mean, I know it took some time, and I wish I had my executive director on to kind of talk about how long it took. But we were able to, the city had I don't know, I don't remember how it's set up in Philly, right? But so our city has a specific a department that's media and entertainment, right? So they do like the Made in New York programs and all these big programs in the city. They, you know, handle the tax incentive stuff and all that kind of stuff. We had a lot of meetings with them to kind of talk about what we wanted to do and all of these things. I'm not 100% sure how we got and I can find out, how we were able to solidify the funding. I know what we got was a 3-year, we got funding for 3 years. So we actually just reapplied. And there was a lot of like we had a change in the mayor and, in administration. The commissioner comes to our quarterly meetings, and I'll make sure you guys are all invited to our next quarterly meeting, which is in June. But, we had to make friends. Like we had to like get someone on our side to like let us know, like we just found out about this RFP for like this post-production training or post-production grant yesterday, like that someone forwarded us from one of our CUNY colleges. Like we had no idea. And so sometimes like, it's just like people tell us about things we should apply for. We write a lot of joint proposals, we write a lot of single proposals. But I would definitely say like, I know a little bit less about that, but I think like, I know, you know, our executive director, he's on a lot of like, he was on a lot of boards. We have the New York Production Alliance here, so like sitting on a lot of boards and meeting people and going to a lot of the city. They engage a lot of our city hall folks here. We have a lobbyist now. So like really trying to communicate. A lot of what we do is also around like data, right? Like knowing who we serve and where those demographics are and reaching out to the local people there to say like, hey, we're serving, you know, 100 students. We do some work in public schools as well. And that's also been helpful, right? Getting grants to do works in public schools. And so we'll say we're serving, you know, 100 people in your district. Like, can we get a conversation and like kind of working it that way? So they do a lot of that. With the unions, literally, because I've heard this story, our executive director, again, was a part of this alliance, this production alliance in New York, and just would like at every meeting, you know, just try to have a conversation with the union person that was there and try to get a connection to the right person. We got it connected to the person from the IATSE International, who's their education team, and then was able to create a proposal to say, we want to do a training for this craft, and they connected us with this local, and then we got Netflix to sponsor that. We got Netflix to sponsor that in part because we have a board member who's from Netflix, and they were able to kind of like put us in touch with the right people. And I will tell you, like, it was helpful. It's always been helpful for our organizations to have HBO being one of our first funders. Like, people are like, especially media companies and even with the unions, like once they hear that you're working with one, they're like, oh, how can we, like, oh, let's jump on. So it was much easier for us to, now we have like a couple of other union trainings and development because they heard about the success of the other things that we've done this year. For about a year, maybe, we've been working really closely with this PR company, and that's expensive, right? But like they're covering and getting like our union training that we just did for, it just came out, I don't know if I shared this article, we just did a union training for hairstylists, and literally we put out that they got that press release put into the, thanks Lisa, it got put into the Hollywood Reporter. And then I got a email today from Local 600, which is the camera union. So like, it's like people know, and now they're like, oh, how can we find out more? So I think it's just been really helpful. But context, right? Like Works has been around for 20 something years. So like it took so long to get to a place where people are now paying attention to the work that we're doing. It took a lot of network. Thanks, Janae. It took a lot of networking. It took a lot of conversations. What was the other thing I was going to say? Yeah, but the data, like having the data, having the outcomes has been really, really helpful. Like being able to say, here's a proof of concept. This is what we're doing. These are the people that are coming out. And then we've just been trying to get press, like interview our student, you know, like just to get more of the word out. And then, you know, what we did with the advisory council, which I shared, has also been helpful. So like, if you guys, as you guys are coming together as the media, you know, educators and having these companies, but leveraging your employer partners. So like Alex, those 4 employers that you got on, you know, you're piloting this thing, you have you know, it's successful, you know, using that to leverage like another 4 or another however, and then also thinking about who you guys have in common and maybe bringing them together, you know, and starting to do your own like advisory council where you're meeting with them, your stakeholders, like getting your stakeholders in the same room is like where there's power, I think, in like them knowing, like this is why our meetings are successful. When we have people in our meetings and I ask them to change their name and company, and like, you know, Warner Brothers Discovery sees that like AMC is in the room, and they see that like, you know, Amazon is in the room, and then they're like, oh wow, like I need to make sure I'm in this space because they're working with people that are their cosign, you know. So yeah, I think exactly. I think the data, and then bringing your partners together that believe in what you do and getting them talking.
Thanks for that. I wanted to bring the conversation back a little bit to the micro scale now, if you will, but it with an eye toward increasing equity and access to spaces for training, but also for spaces for jobs, full-time, part-time jobs in the industry, and wondering about advocacy that your organization may do on behalf of students, on behalf of kind of paving the way with regard to requirements that are in place for students to then get jobs, right? And with an eye for us to hopefully getting credentials associated with apprenticeships that we're trying to create. And I know you have such a rich background from your own walk. I mean, you're Puerto Rican and Black, you're married to Gabe, right, who's white and Jewish. Like, you've walked a lot of roads and you've interfaced with so many people and exude this warmth about you that just says, you know, I'm here for everyone, right? And I know when we interviewed you for Motivos, what was that, like summer 2020, I want to say, when you were doing the documentary on hair discrimination. So even like Tangled, right? Like, how was that being followed? Politicians were trying to make changes to stop organizations from discriminating based on the way you look, based on the credentials you don't have, based on the degree you might not have, based on the social capital you don't have, right? So can you speak to that a little bit with regard to what are some steps to look out for, maybe in job requirements, maybe in internship requirements, maybe in us advocating to larger organizations to say, hey, you're trying to diversify your workforce, but here's some barriers that may be in place that you're not aware of?
Yeah, I'd been having the conversation for so long with employer partners saying like, hey, you're asking for an internship, you're asking for this particular GPA, you're recruiting from these particular schools. You know, I mean, when you talk about barriers, it's like, it's an internship. That's the only way people get asked. You're asking for, sometimes you see internships that are asking for all of these like skill sets. And I'm like, it's an internship. Like, they don't have these yet. This is why we're trying to come to you. And so I think like, it's really tough because hiring managers have been doing stuff for the same way for a long time. But I do think that like, I'm starting to see some change. You know, I'm starting to see people accepting associate's degrees and not just four-year degrees. I'm starting to see people being open to not having a traditional college degree, but maybe, you know, like Sherry, you mentioned a certificate. I love that you guys are doing a certificate around children's media. I think I try so hard to engage our students around children's media, and I have a call with this Sesame Street in like a couple of weeks. I'm trying to engage them, but like, that's an important certificate. So if someone has a certificate in children's media and has been like interning or working at different places or volunteering, you know, whatever they're doing, but they don't have a four-year degree, it's like, don't let that be something that takes away from what they are able to do. The biggest thing that I saw was with the Viacom CBS program, it's now Paramount, the Content for Change Academy was specifically for people who did not have a four-year degree. Actually having a four-year degree would make you ineligible for the program. So they were looking for people with an associate's degree, a high school diploma or GED equivalent. And then, so those 7 people that you saw had that, and then getting them in the door and proving that they were just as qualified to be a full-time employee with the company. You know, I think and use that link, like use that link as a model. Be like, hey, Paramount's doing it. Like, why, you know, let's think outside the box here. And I think that was like, that was like a very just a pivotal moment, because we'd been working, I'd been working specifically Viacom for many years to say like, hey, like, what are we doing? Can you take our engineer? And I mean, I was getting no for a very long time. And so it again, I think the timing right now, people are thinking differently. They have to. There's pressure. These companies, when after, you know, in the last 2-3 years, they put out all these press releases like, we're going to do this and we're going to change this and we don't stand for that. And so now people are like, all right, like, live up to what you said. You said you want to do X, Y, and Z for the community and you don't have barriers, like, let's see it. And so I think there's a lot of pressure for people to live up to what they said. And so, so I think, you know, we typically for a long time, we're seeing educational requirements. Also sometimes like, even the union, you know, like you can't just join the union. That, you know, I think Alex, we talked about this a little bit. Like sometimes the application period opens up. It's very quick. It's expensive. You have to have all this money to like pay for union membership and all this kind of stuff. And so you know, what we're trying to do against that with the trainings is like, let's just get them union hours, let's get them qualified, and let's get them on lists so that people call them. It's interesting that you talked about like the jobs and people feeling threatened by their jobs. I don't know, and it could just be that it's different in New York. I don't know what the landscape is like in Philly, but if more productions are coming to Philly, like this might be a thing. But you know, in New York, there's almost too much work. So they run through their members. After they finish running through their members, they run through their D-applicant list. So these are people who are working towards membership. After they finish that list, then they get to our students, and all of our students are working. So it's kind of like there's enough work to go around. And they also got into like some trouble, and like the state is pushing them to do DI stuff. So there could be something where like maybe that's not the case in Philly, but you know, I think just when you guys are networking, you're meeting union people, like ask them, like find out if that's really the case. We're actually bringing our grip and electric training program to Pittsburgh, which is further away, of course, but like at least we're going in the direction, and so I think I'm happy to, I mean, I love Philly. I think Philly's a great place to do training programs, and happy to make connections to like any of the, companies that I shared with you guys in our advisory council or anything like that to your work. But yeah, I mean, it's taken a lot of conversations with the talent acquisition departments, the hiring managers, the line producers to say like, let's emphasize skills over anything else. Let's bring skills to the forefront. Really quickly, I'll just share a screen that we do. One of the things we have as a part of our program is this digital badging platform. And so we offer digital badges when you guys are talking about credentials for soft skills, but also so these are soft skills, and these are also like our training programs, like, the hairstylist one, the electric one. But we also do it in our classrooms for our around like film skills. So like Premiere Pro basics and all these kind of things. Students are earning these. We recently partnered with an organization called the Animation Project, which is a New York City organization, to work with them to create specific animation-based badges, so like or credentials. So like here's one on rigging that we created with them. And the point is to be able to create credentials that then another animation company can use, or another organization that does filmmaking can use, and then working with employers to working with the Knowledge House now to create some around tech, but working with employers to sort of recognize these as additional things that they can consider when hiring, right? Because I think one of the challenges we had, and this is a great example, we've had students through our program, they create a film, maybe they create multiple films, right? They're with us for 3 years, or whatever, however long. They go to college, they're in their first freshman class, and they're paying to learn Adobe Premiere Pro. They already know it. They've been using it for like 3 years, and they would come to us and be like, so there's that, right? And then on the other side of things, they'll apply to program internships or jobs. And it's so hard for them to say, like, these are the skills that I picked up in this alternative, educational program. It's a lot easier for them to put Temple University, people know what that means. There's a reputation behind it. If you were in the film department or communications, or I know the name has changed, but whatever department you were in, like they just recognize, they don't need to ask you questions. But if you came out of, one of you guys' programs like Big Picture Alliance, how do they know how much work and skill sets that's come out of that? And so what we've done is created these credentials that are connected to our learning, that celebrate these benchmarks, right, of the different skills they're picking up, and make it easier for them to put these on their resumes. And they hyperlink it. Sometimes they put the image, sometimes they don't. But either way, an employer can click on that, see the organization that gave them that credential, and then learn more about the criteria that they actually had to do to get that. If a student comes out of our program and says, "Oh, I did the RealWorks program and I created a documentary," they don't know that they learned Adobe Premiere Pro, that they learned 3-act structure, that they worked with a mentor for 6 months, that they had to shoot and edit their own, like they just don't know. They don't know that they learned how to create a pitch, and they did a pitch deck in front of a company. So how can we like bring those skills to employers? I think that's a wonderful way to like start to break down some barriers.
No, that's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. I wanted to give a couple minutes to Ramsey. So he's working a little bit for Philly Cam right now. He's on the ground, right? He's got feet on the ground looking for job opportunities. So if we could let Ramsey just speak about what kind of barriers he may be facing, especially with regard to college degrees, right? Is that a barrier? Given that he has a documentary that's at the Smithsonian, like he knows his stuff, right? So go ahead, Ramsey.
Yeah, so I guess like I'm more of like an anecdote type person, right? The best way I could really explain my barriers is like back in what month we're in May, back in around February, right? I was filming a music video. I was helping my friends film a music video, and we were like, we were filming it down Broad Street, and we were racing down Broad Street, and my one friend was leaning out of the window to get the shot, right? And I'm looking at him like, yo, this is who I want working with me. Like this, if I'm going out to Kensington, if I'm going out to wherever I'm going to, this is who I want. Cause especially like, I know like that whole shoot got put together in like the course of a week, and it was like a very well planned out. The video came out okay because the editing wasn't great, but at the end of the day, it's like it's like these people, there are a bunch of people who want to get stuff done and who are very much about it, who are very passionate about their craft and everything, right? And a lot of times like not having that degree, not having like, or just like schooling in general can be very grating for some people. They just don't fit into like, whether they might not fit into school, but they do fit in perfectly in a set or on a kitchen, right? And whatchamacallit? And yeah, it's just like, it can be really frustrating, to be honest, especially like, and even having a degree, like I've worked with multiple people. I know multiple people that are like, yeah, I have a degree, I have a film degree. And these are people that I asked to look at my shots. These are people that I like, their opinion, like I value their opinion, and they have a whole degree, like, and they still can't get work just because stuff can be so like, it's like the information isn't like, for whatever reason, just might not be as available to some people. So yeah. And personally, like I was it's been even like with my like, I have a pretty good body of work now, right? Like I have that film, it's a mini documentary on urban farming in Philadelphia, and it's like at the Smithsonian or whatever, and I'm working with the Free Library right now. So it's like I'm seeing my body of work get built up and I'm getting more jobs, but even then it's still just like there's still like so many barriers that even from not having a degree, like I don't know how to use. I was like filming at a circus school the other day, and I didn't know what it meant to spike something, like just to put tape on the ground. And the dude was giving me such a fit, like, he questioned my entire, like, I guess, like artistic integrity, because I didn't know what this one word meant instead of like explaining it, right? And I don't really know where I'm going with this in general, but it's like, I guess all these factors really, like, I guess are more of a, like, y'all are talking more about the like broader organizational sense. And this is like what I'm going through really reflects what y'all are processing, just like on my personal level,
It ties into, though, if there were some kind of credentialing outside of a degree program, there would be like, check here to make sure you know all of these things, so that you know from a personal standpoint that I got this. You'd feel more confident walking into the scene if you know that you've got this credential and you've covered your bases.
Yeah, I think and to your point, even about people who go get degrees and get film school and go to film school, all those kind of things, like so much of what you learned, it happens once you're out working and you're, actively, and it's not just at a company, like definitely, like whether you're working with an independent filmmaker on a set, having a mentor, having someone that Ramsey's, that you could have text, hey, what does this mean? And that person's like, oh, that means this. That person's not judging you. That's your mentor. Like having someone like that is really, really phenomenal. And I think so we didn't really get to talk about mentorship, but I think that's key. And then I think also it's really hard, obviously, to be an independent filmmaker. A lot of the independent filmmakers I know have to have other jobs, right, to sustain their projects and to make money while they're pursuing their craft, while they're networking. But I think what you're doing, Ramsey's, makes sense. I think, definitely I'd encourage you to just figure out how to market yourself well, like whether that's on Instagram or whether that's on a website or whatever, like, so what, you didn't know what that was, but do prove yourself through the work that you're doing, through your skill set, through the projects you create, but have that confidence. And that's hard. Like I deal with a lot of the people in our program. We do a whole workshop. You have whole work readiness things to specifically on cultural cultural fluency and advocacy, and we talk about imposter syndrome. I mean, that's a barrier in itself. Is like, you're confident, you're on a set, and then someone makes you feel like less than because you didn't know a word. Now, as you're working, you're going to have that in the back of your mind, right? And so, like, us figuring out ways to empower people who are talented like yourself, instead of putting them, instead of them falling short because other people don't know their worth.
Thank you, Keisha. What a beautiful note to end on. We run out of time. I know we could talk for much more time. I don't know if everyone has a little more time, wants to hang around. I want to make sure, Keisha, we don't take more of her time though, because we've kind of about an hour. So, but any last words, any last questions, any wrap up thoughts from Keisha? Feel free.
I would just say, if there's anything Philly that can come down the pipeline for Philly, we'd all love to. And I've said this in our group before, like, we are a larger company, and the education department has gone through that struggle of trying to work with our unions, trying to get people to understand what an internship should be in the company, but we are the education department. So we totally understand, and we're kind of like kind of that company and the educator thing. So we've loved being part of the conversation. So everything you're saying resonates really deeply. And if you have anything that can be Philly related, let us know. I'm very, very intrigued by the lobbying and how we can get into that incentives kind of space, because we've been looking more at like the youth employment money that the city gets, but we hadn't really talked about like the city's like own filming budget. So that really intrigued me. So thank you for bringing that up. And I'm sure you're going to be brought up again. And also, I would love to come and visit one day. And you're also more than welcome to visit all of our awesome places when you come to Philly ever again.
I know. I'm planning to come for the Roots picnic, but after that, that'll be my first time coming in a long time. So it's a little bit of more of a fun trip, but I would hope to come down and, do some networking and meet some of you. And if either of you are ever in New York, you're more than welcome to let me know, visit RealWorks and shadow or learn anything more about what we're doing. And I will absolutely keep Philadelphia in mind, especially with the union trainings as they want to move to other cities. Really, really happy to do that. The people who people who are bringing us to Pittsburgh were not the union. It was the film departments, like the people who actually do those kind of tax incentives. So that's an interesting thing. Like, they were going to unions when shows were coming in for staffing and realizing there was some hiring, like they didn't have enough people, or that they didn't have enough diverse people. So it might be worth it to engage those folks who work with the unions to see if they're interested in doing some sort of union trainings. And then we already have recruiting partners here, and like we can figure that out. So definitely keep us in mind.
We did talk to the film office a couple months ago. I'm curious if someone at your film office would be really nice to connect with ours and kind of like be like hype people for us. I don't know, because I feel like the person from the film office was pretty cool, right? Alex, she sounded like she'd be down, but it might be cool for someone from another film office to talk about how this has been so impactful. I think she was excited when we all talked, but sometimes if it's people doing similar work to each other, they like to hear that. I don't know if you guys think that's a good idea, but that might be helpful for us.
The more people in the room pressure type of thing. Is that what you're thinking, Lisa?
Kind of like, if that's the place where maybe the money could be, because I feel like the PYN stuff is so gated and it might take us even longer. And if the film office has expressed, like, they sounded like they were kind of excited about the idea, it might be cool to bring the other film office, like people from New York, to kind of like learn from each other and be like, why is this important? You know what I mean? It doesn't have to happen like next month or something, but it's just an idea from what you're saying, Keisha, that I think would be good.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so New York, we're working with the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, and then in Pittsburgh, it was the Pittsburgh Film Office that like reached out to us and reached out to the unions, and they're really excited about. So that they might also be like a good person to connect them with. We're just starting that, so maybe like give us a chance to like really solidify the ask and prove that we're a good partner to them. But they had a need that they saw only from being the film, the people that the filmmakers come through. And I think, I'm happy to make any of those kind of connections. So definitely keep me in mind for that.
Thank you,
I
Keisha.
do,
We have
I
our
do have a,
homework
yeah.
from kind of the macro level of the funding and thinking about different offices and unions and other organizations to work with for funding, and the micro level looking at what barriers may exist even in our own organizations that we don't realize are there or that we might have power to influence. So maybe a to-do in the next month is for everyone kind of look at your own company's job requirements, look at the barriers to entry for new media makers for your own companies, see if they're using college as a barrier that's what did Alex write in there, like a euphemism for soft skills? Find out what's really needed for the person to do the job. And if that is not, maybe see if it can be eliminated. Just one more barrier to get rid of and go from there. So I don't know, do we know who the speaker is for next month? Does anyone want to announce that yet? Or we're not sure yet? Not yet, okay.
But we should
Thank you
probably
so
let
much,
Keisha
everyone.
go. I'm gonna
Thanks
stop
so much,
recording.
everybody.
Thanks, Keisha.
Thank you so
Thanks